the cat's out of the bag and that there is something seriously wrong with the United States and its relationship with Israel. And the longer this goes on, the more and more apparent it's going to be. I mean, we just saw Ted Cruz. I'm sure you saw that clip where Tucker Carlson was talking about, okay, well, what's the population around? It's not important. It's like, well, you want to invade a country and you overthrow the government and you don't know anything about this country. Right. And then he uses the term like, well, we're going to strike them. It's like, we are. I thought you were saying Israel's going to do. It just shows you who they are. When they say we, they are speaking on behalf of Israel, not the American people. And so it's starting to break through. People are like, what is going on here? And then we had that incredible statement from Donald Trump when he said, your own director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, said that your intelligence agencies have not found any sign that Iran is trying to pursue a nuclear weapon. I don't care what she says. I don't care what my national intelligence. Right. I have Israeli. But that's what's being insinuated here. Like, who wants this attack? It's Israel. It's Netanyahu. So you saying you got some special intelligence? Where did that come from? It came from the Zionists.
Right. Yeah, no, that's extraordinary. I mean, that was just quite an extraordinary statement by Trump. Amazing. I mean, that's the whole job of the DNI is, right, to present like what the consensus view of the intelligence communities to the president. And he's just going to ignore it. It's extraordinary. And yeah, though he didn't say, no, I'm just listening to the Israelis, it seems to be the logical conclusion. You got to ask yourself, well, who are you listening to? If you won't listen to your own intelligence agencies, who are you listening to? And I think you're right. It's probably directly from, Netanyahu and the Israelis, but also all those Israel firsters within his own administration and the deep state, who are just lying to him, because it's just well known. It's not just that this is under Tulsi Gabbard that we've had this finding. This has been the consistent finding of the intelligence agencies, the U.S. intelligence agencies, for, well over 20 years now. And you just say, why do we even have intelligence agencies if we have a president like this? It's really frightening. It's, it would be funny if it wasn't so, if the consequences of this weren't so horrific. So yeah, there's that. And then you mentioned that poll. It showed that, I think it was a YouGov poll, 11% support for intervention, 60% against it. Now the support was stronger. I think it was 23% among Republicans, but many more opposed it. I think 53% among Republicans, did not want us to intervene on Israel's behalf, to become involved in this. So it shows he's not responding to pressure from the people. They never do. It's those mega donors, it's Miriam Edelson. It's all those Iran hawks and Zionists, ultra Zionists that he's appointed, and the ones that have always been there. I mean, that's what's going on. And but as you're right to point out, this is really goes against the interests and the wishes of the common people, of the people that voted for him. And it's you could certainly say that was certainly true, like of the Iraq War. But back then, people were a lot less cynical. I think that's the difference. And, as you've been pointing out, there is this growing awareness of what's going on. It's still, it still isn't nearly as widespread or as it should be. But there is a growing awareness of this unhealthy relationship. It didn't really exist at all. It was just on the fringes, but it's clearly moved beyond that right now. And so there's a growing and I think very healthy cynicism about these kind of wars. You think about it, it's just sort of like the Iraq War all over again. Remember, weapons of mass destruction. And people really bought it back then. They really believed it. I remember back then, I had my suspicions, but I had too much trust in the government back then. I said, well, they must have some intelligence I'm not aware of or something. Turned out they had nothing. Now, I think all of us, or very many of us anyway, maybe a majority, have grown really quite cynical and skeptical about these claims. He said, I've heard that before. I don't believe this. It's going to be harder for them to pull it off. Maybe they're going to go ahead and do it, but there's just going to be, I think, the The support for it, it may increase. There's, especially like if a bomber gets shot down or whatever, we worry about our pilot or something, this happens. But especially if this drags on and it gets ugly, I think people are going to sour on it much more quickly than they soured on the Iraq war.
Right. I mean, we were naive with the Iraq war, and it came out of nowhere. The 9/11 event was massive, a lot of high emotions. But what we have here is we're being sold such an obvious lie. I mean,
Right.
just the gall of the Israelis to think that they can get away with this. It just shows you how little regard they have for our own intelligence and sovereignty as Americans, that they can do this, that they can say, oh, we'll be conducting mass murder in Gaza for years, and America is going to support us no matter what, even though it's damaging our reputation on the world stage. It's just harming us. And then they've been saying that Iran is going to be close to getting a nuclear weapon for 30, 40 years. Netanyahu's been saying this. There's all these clips going out. You said CNN posted one about
Yeah.
it.
Right.
Right.
I mentioned in our previous
Previous
episode,
comments, correct.
the one that, with the technical problem.
That we lost.
Well, I think that is important to point out. It's just another example, the kind of thing that you haven't seen before. CNN, had some brief episode, where they actually did replay all the clips of Netanyahu saying over the years. They showed him going back to, I think, 1995, but apparently he said it even earlier. Iran is just, 2 years away from a bomb. And he's been saying that like for every 2 years ever since. And they didn't show all the clips, but they showed quite a few. That's interesting because, again, CNN is not an outfit that is known for being sympathetic to Iranians or to be or generally skeptical of Zionist claims. I'm being facetious here, because sarcastic, because they've been very much a part of the establishment. They have trumpeted the Zionist claims. They have trumpeted a lot of the the wild accusations directed against Iran. But here they're going the opposite way, and so that's interesting. It shows, I think, again, there is a skepticism and cynicism that didn't exist before. I'm afraid it's not going to prevent them from doing the dirty deed and actually becoming directly and overtly involved. But I think that like the support for it is going to be very limited, and it's going to fall away quickly. And that's the silver lining to this whole thing. It's just that Israel and their supporters within the U.S. have taken this too far, and it's beginning to show. It's just like people have lost patience with this.
Yeah, I mean, if you just do a little bit of bare minimum research on this conflict, it's hard to come to any other conclusion than Israel's the aggressor here.
Yeah.
And they are doing this with the complete plan of just drawing the United States into the conflict because they know they can't do it themselves. And it's amazing that they did this massive punch that was coordinated with the United States while Trump is supposed to be negotiating with Iran on getting a peace deal, a nuclear deal. They used that as a ruse. They used the IAEA as a ruse. The whole thing was just this setup to do this sucker punch. And then within 24 hours of their massive, decapitation attack, they're coming begging America for help, just showing how pathetically weak Israel is.
Yeah.
And it's just...
Right. Well, again, if anybody has been following this closely as we have, none of this part of it is not a surprise. I was surprised by what Israel did and, the extent of their penetration of Iranian society. But we're not surprised for this. We've been talking about this, and many others have been talking about this for a long time, about what Israel is up to. It's all about getting the U.S. involved. And it's just like it only went 2 days or so, before they began begging for the U.S. to become
right. Involved. They did it so quickly. So that's what I'm saying that, and then we're seeing this craziness coming out of our political elite, and a lot of our billionaires are saying, oh, we can just see, like, why is everybody just turned on a switch and they're just pumping out more propaganda? Oh, they're about to nuke Israel. They're going to nuke the United States. We got to just drop bombs on them now. No questions asked.
Yeah.
And everybody, normal person that isn't paid off by AIPAC or, an evangelical Zionist or whatever, is just like, what the hell is this? And it's
Yeah.
just so clear. That just means that the jig is up. And so what does that mean to American society?
Right.
As it becomes more and more apparent to the majority of Americans that Israel is controlling and using America in so many ways, there's got to be a lot of hatred, and we're talking about it's just going to get worse. These people are going to
Yeah.
have so many questions after this. If the United States continues to get further involved, questions are going to get asked, especially as
Yeah.
gas prices start to shoot up, Strait of Hormuz gets closed, China gets more involved, Pakistan gets more involved. The whole thing's just going to, and people are going to ask questions. If Trump just pulls back and says, "Oh, okay, no, everything's settled." Okay, first of all, I don't think Iran is going to stop hitting Israel, and I don't think Israel can stop. Netanyahu's in too far. His political career is at stake. He's going to keep it going. So, but even if we did, people will be like, "What the hell was that about, Trump?
Yeah. Right.
What's going on here?" And then people will start to uncover. I think it's a matter of time before Joe Rogan gets Tucker Carlson, or not Tucker Carlson. Joe Rogan gets Tulsi Gabbard on his podcast. They're good friends, and she's going to be like, "What happened here? That he doesn't listen to?
Right.
Who's he listening to?"
Right.
And it's going to come out. He's already talked to people like Ian Carroll. That is mainstream consciousness now. And even mainstream media like CNN, they're starting to break through. I saw what was it? Jon Stewart did the same thing. Did a great job making fun of Netanyahu constantly making this claim. Just we're laughing at it. We're laughing at just how stupid this is, that we would fall for this. So it's not going to work. So what does that mean for the U.S. society if we
well, at first, it shows that. Again, I'll just point to the contrast. I remember back those days in 2002, 2003. In the build up to the Iraq War, and all these scary stories about they've got weapons of mass destruction. It could be mushroom clouds and in Peoria and all that. And people believed it. They swallowed it hook, line, and sinker. People were scared. They trusted their government. George W. Bush had a plan, and we had to stand behind him. For a while, I think he had a 90%, maybe it wasn't 90%, but it was amazingly high approval rating. And it's just different this time, because we're hearing a lot of the same talk and people are making fun of it. There's still, some people, I suppose, still believe in it, but I don't even think, I kind of suspect that a lot of those people who are going along with the story know that it's phony. They're just interested in regime change, and they understand this whole thing's an excuse. The whole thing is just so transparent. So it's different this time. And what does it mean for American society? Well, eventually, I think all I could say, I don't know how it's going to play out, because this is so crazy. And we're talking about these, kind of the American psyche. But we're going to become a bipolar society, or not maybe bipolar, multiple personality, a split personality is maybe what I'm trying to say. Because we do have these, I think dead enders, people who, if for whatever reason, some of them are Christian Zionists, but they're just Jewish Zionists and secular Zionists. There are plenty of them who just believe in Israel and then believe in, for them, this is the most important thing of all. And they're not going to, some of them are going to wake up from the nightmare and realize what they've done, but most of them won't. And they're going to fight to the end. They have a lot of power. But as the rest of us wake up to what's going on, and then you say, like, what have you done? You're going to look at the smoking ruins of Gaza. It's just sort of like a wake up and, you see that, like, realize that your eyes are open to the horror that has been wreaked in our name. Not just in Gaza now and in Lebanon, in Syria, but also in Iran. Many of us are going to turn to our fellow citizens and say, what have you done? And I don't know how it's going to play out, but it's going to be something that could really tear apart American society.
Do you think there's going to be a judgment day in this world for the people, the traitors to this country, really? People like Lindsey Graham and Randy Fine, Donald Trump, these people that are taking orders for another nation, not acting in the interest of the American people.
Right.
Will there be some type of, will they have a bill to pay
Yeah. Well, one again, I think it's important to point out that um, it's not really an exaggeration to say they're taking orders, but it's not like they've just been bought off. They're believers. I think people like that. They have been they've allowed the Zionism to become part of their own faith, and they do believe in it. But in believing in it, yeah, they put the interests of another country. I wouldn't even say the interests, but the objectives, the goals of another country above their own. And yes, then that does make them traitors, even if they're very sincere about their treachery, their treason, I should say. It still makes them traitors. I don't know. Often the powerful, they have a way of escaping justice. Maybe I'm not. I don't care in a way if these people get off scot free. I don't really care. I just want to see it end. I just want to see it end. I want to see them out of power. I don't even mind if Trump, he can retire to Mar-a-Lago, and I don't know where Lindsey Graham goes, but his country estate in South Carolina or whatever. Just as long as they don't have any more power and they can't do any more damage, and we just end this madness. That's just all I hope for.
Yeah, well, the good thing is that at least in this country, we can hopefully achieve that, because as this conflict keeps on growing and people become more and more aware of the problem, we can vote these people out. People will really be looking at, okay, are you an Israel first or America first? And it's becoming very apparent who is who now. It's clear as day. If there was any question about it before, now we know. And so hopefully those will get out of power. But what about Israeli society, though? Because this is something different, because this is something where you have the vast majority, over 80%, that are all in favor of ethnic cleansing. It's hard to get 80% of people to agree on anything. It's actually impressive that they have such a large majority that are okay with this.
Right.
After World War II, after the Holocaust, we had, the Nuremberg trials, and we were hunting down all the perpetrators of the Holocaust. What will we do for the Holocaust that happened in Gaza? I mean, this is different because you have a whole population that were totally on board with it. What happens to them? Do they? Is there something that they just have to change their identity and try to integrate in society somewhere else? I mean, what?
Yeah, no, it's a very good question. Well, that's the dangerous thing is, again, these people have nuclear weapons. The most recent estimate I saw was actually they have 90. I had heard earlier 200. We'll say 90 to 200 nuclear warheads. They have them, and they have people who clearly would be willing to use them. I mean, they're just that kind of people, the kind of people you find in Netanyahu's ruling coalition. So that's the great danger, is that if they really think they're going down, Israel is in danger of extinction, let's say, as a state. They may go to that Samson option. That's a possibility. That's a very scary possibility. Now within, it's 83%, according to that recent poll, is in favor of, fully ethnically cleansing Gaza. 83% of Jewish Israelis. So you'll certainly find something different among the 20% or so that are Arabs. But that is a huge, huge majority. You're right. Now, I remember this earlier poll that only 2% of Jewish Israelis thought that too much was being done in Gaza, that the attacks were excessive. Only 2% thought that. So this is an entire society, that's, you could say, has blood on its hands. And can they wake up from this? Can they repent? Can they?
Has there ever been a society like that where it's not like in Nazi Germany that people were cheering on and taking tours as the Gazans were being slaughtered?
Right.
But I mean, the Germans weren't watching the Jews getting slaughtered. There were a few people that, obviously that were in charge of this, but it wasn't just the average German person that's like, yes, this is great. But that's what we're seeing in Israel. And have we ever seen anything like that? Have we ever seen where just women and children of a society, the old, the young, the schools or the doctors are like, yeah, celebrating when we're killing kids in the neighboring territory.
Yeah, well, I can just think of some horrible wars in the past, especially in the ancient world. Of course, where everyone is put to the sword. But there's no comparison in that we don't have the media that we have. We don't have the immediacy. Usually these wars were fought quite often a great distance from the inhabitants of the country, and many of them didn't fully understood. They couldn't view it as it was happening. This is different. This is new. I don't think there's anything that it really can be compared to.
It's such a fascinating the whole story of Israel is both fascinating and horrifying. It's so insane. The whole story of it is just it's unbelievable. I can't believe it's real. That we're in this situation,
Yeah.
and now that we were talking about nuclear war because of this ethno-supremacist state that we helped create that's in the middle of engaging a genocide, that has nuclear weapons, that wants to attack another country that doesn't have nuclear weapons. And this country, Israel, is not part of the NPT, doesn't follow any laws. It can get away with anything.
Yeah.
It's so weird. But that has destroyed the rules-based order. That has destroyed America already.
Yeah.
It's destroyed it irreparably. Like, America is done. And I think a lot of people, feel that, but they don't understand it or know how to articulate it. That like it doesn't feel good to be American anymore. American stuff is tainted, and it's tainted in large part because of Israel.
Right. Yeah. No. I think there's no, and our very willing complicity. That's. I think it's true. It's like it's beyond a double standard. It's just that there are no standards for Israel. It's just the hypocrisy is just is unbelievable. It's off the charts. Recently the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia, I think it just today came out with a statement on really the need to clean up the IAEA. They pointed out the huge hypocrisy that, they say clearly they were manipulated into making this finding the day before the attack. And it was clearly a coordinated effort, to set up Iran and attack them. And, I say, well, look, the NPT regime, the non-proliferation regime, which is so important to the security of the world, is being manipulated by the West, bent to its own ends. It's, in this case, clearly nefarious ends. And this has to change. They're demanding, look, we need to see some comprehensive reports on the attacks. First of all, these attacks on nuclear facilities in Iran, those are, in direct contravention, again, like of the UN Charter. It's the sort of thing that the IAEA is supposed to be focused on. And, they haven't actually come out and condemned Israel for it. But Russia was saying, you've got to do this. Basically, they're trying to save the IAEA and make it a credible organization again. But it's in danger of becoming, just thoroughly discredited by this. And that's IAEA is just part of that so-called rules-based international order that you're talking about. It's so much of it has been corrupted, and it's just like the double standards and hypocrisy that were always there, and bothered certain people, but most people, managed kind of to overlook it. It just becomes so blatant, and in this case, it's just so extreme that, I think it is part of, it. It should be the death knell for the so-called rules-based international order.
Well, let's pray so. Okay, Dad. Well, I think we can end it there unless there's anything else you want to throw in.
Well, I think, I think this is what I said earlier in our previous attempt at a recording, but it's just that let's not forget Gaza and just, or Did I say this in this broadcast? I can't remember or not. But
We
there,
talked a little bit about it, but yeah, just
yeah, there was a massacre within the last
right.
24 hours of 59. Okay, I think maybe I did mention
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But let's just not forget Gaza. I mean, the horror there continues. Yeah, I guess I did. We did talk about that, so we can leave it there.
Yeah, yeah. Let's just hope we can navigate this without all going boom.
Yeah,
And
right.
it's crazy to say that. I felt like I've been fear mongering a bit because I'm just looking at the situation and I'm just like, Israel is screwed. Well, if
Mm.
Israel's screwed, then people are going to start looking up the Samson option, because that's
Yeah,
what's there. This
yeah.
is a nuclear weapon then, and they show they don't have any problem, killing non-Jewish life, non-Jewish, human
Yeah.
beings on this planet. So it's like, will they do it? And all of their actions so far says that I think they will, and that's just
Um,
so scary. And then but the problem is just once people start getting closer to that point where it's like, oh my God, Israel's in big trouble, and now
mm,
you start to hear about the Samson option. The hatred towards Israel is going to grow even more. Once people realize, hey, you're holding the whole world hostage. This isn't cool.
mhm,
It's so bad. And then just the repercussions from that after the state of Israel, dissipates or
mhm,
whatever, breaks it, turns into something else.
mhm.
Why, what's going to happen in the world? Where are they going to go? How are we going to deal with the situation and just realize how crazy this whole experiment was?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
So
Yeah,
let's
well,
just
it,
fingers crossed, fingers
yeah,
crossed. No,
right.
no nukes.
When you're talking about that and all the very frightening outcomes that we're faced with, and you can't really see any sort of happy outcome. I just thought of that recent crash of the Indian Airlines um, jet, the passenger jet, and the incredible story of the one man who survived, and it's just like nobody knows how, but he just found himself lying there surrounded by bodies and burning wreckage, and he just got up and started running away. So it's almost like that's what we're hoping for, that will somehow the world will be that one man, that
Yeah.
somehow survives all this.
Yeah, no, it's not like I'm trying to think of some way that this could go nuclear. I'm trying to find a way where this won't,
Yeah,
and it's hard to see it. So I mean,
yeah,
are we betting on seat 11A? I don't like that. It's
yeah, yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, there's again, history has twists and turns, and our imaginations never can consider all the possibilities. There may be some. I wouldn't say a happy ending, but a non-apocalyptic ending to this. But it's
okay.
really kind of hard to see, like you're saying.